Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this Arrow ECS webinar with Paul's introduction. Thank you so much for attending. So today we are going to take a closer look at the new reporting and licensing portal from Veeam. My name is Thijs, and I'm a technical business developer with Arrow ECS in Denmark. Also with us on the call today, we have Alan from Arrow ECS Sweden and Anthony doing the presentation from Veeam. So I just want to call out a couple of things before we get started. This presentation will be done in 3 segments. We're going to pause at each segment for taking questions. If you have questions during the presentation, use the Q&A button down in the bottom of the Zoom console, and you can just ask them as we go along, and we'll pick them up and get them answered when we pause in the presentation. You can also use the chat, of course, but we would prefer questions to go into the Q&A section. If you want to ask the question live, just raise your hand. You can use the participants tab in the bottom of the Zoom console as well, and we can unmute you and you can ask your questions. So with that, Anthony.
Thanks, Thijs. Good afternoon, everybody. So exactly like Thijs mentioned, we're going to go through this session in 3 stages. The first is going to be logging into ArrowSphere, and in principle, what you do once you log into ArrowSphere for you to get into the Veeam VCSP Pulse platform. Once we go through that, we'll pause. I'll do a quick overview of the platform of Pulse so that you can get a good understanding of what you will see. So we'll pause there. That'll be the first pause, and see if there are any questions you have regarding just generally logging into ArrowSphere, logging into Pulse from ArrowSphere, and just a quick view of the system. If you've got any questions, we'll take those then. The next section we're going to look at is going to be around license management. So we'll show you basically your license now, the licenses now have been migrated from what used to be my.veeam in Veeam's portals into Pulse. So that'll be one thing that you would need to see. Show you what that looks like in Pulse, show you how you can cut new licenses, make changes to the existing licenses, as well as like download your license files. So we'll talk about that as a second stage. We'll pause at the end of the licensing section for questions as well. And then the final section is going to be around the usage reporting. Usage for March will become available for you to start reporting from the 1st of April, so in a few days. So we'll go through that, and then again, once we're done, we will pause and we will take any questions across the board. So just to start, I'm going to just play through the journey in ArrowSphere. So the key thing is a few things, obviously, that you did previously are going to be the same. So you would log into ArrowSphere as you normally do today. Once you log into ArrowSphere, you see your normal type screens where you've got like your dashboard as it is today. From my understanding, in terms of how you do it, you typically would select the relevant sections to go through. So just to kind of speed this up a little bit, you'd go through, so you've got your catalog area, which is standard. Typically, you can have those views. But then the key areas that you really want to go to is, outside of the catalog, you want to click on the business. From the navigation menu, you want to click on business. And then you want to select report monthly usages, and then select specifically create new report. This, I believe, is what you're doing today in ArrowSphere. What is different, obviously, is once you do this, you select subscription. So this example, obviously, is looking at the Veeam Cloud and Service Provider program, and obviously the reporting month. You click on create report, and this is what's different. This page is now different from what you typically used to see. So this is now a single sign-on page, whereby you would click on this blue button over here, and that will navigate you into the Veeam Pulse platform. So typically this is what is different. You'd be clicking on this blue button, Veeam portal, and that will navigate you into the Veeam portal. So once you click on that button, it will take you to the Pulse platform, and in principle, you will be taken to this My Actions page. Now, if you did this today or right now as we're going through it, this page will be empty just because the first usage you are going to report will be for March, and it will be starting April 1st. However, we are aware that maybe there's 1 or 2 partners who may have their February usages, and because we have switched on the single sign-on, you're going to go into Pulse, and for those partners, we have loaded your February usage into Pulse as well, so you'll be able to go there and report that now. So that's the high-level view. We're going to come back at the end, and we're going to show you exactly how to report your usages. But the one thing I should do is just give you a quick overview of the platform so that you have a good understanding of all these buttons and basically what they do. Starting at the beginning, let's click on the home page. So you can see basically we have some just high-level program updates. These will be updated shortly with some new content. You can see some of the key actions, the statuses within Pulse. So on the right over here, you've got new, pending service provider review, or rejected by aggregator. And if you see anything basically with this status, it means you have something to do. It means you have not submitted it, or in fact, with this one, you have submitted it, but your aggregator has returned it to you for you to make some amendments to it. So that's the home page. Over here, you've got My Actions, and this is where we started from. So you always will be logged into the My Actions page once you go into Pulse. And you can see basically that you've got outstanding usage. I mean, I've staged this, obviously, for this demo. However, I'm expecting that when you log in, the majority of you will see March 2020 over here. You can also see, obviously, your minimum commit points, the status, like I just talked about, and then, obviously, we have a due date over here stated as well. All monthly usages. So this basically, the longer you have started reporting your usage in Pulse, the more this is going to build up. So you can basically see that as a service provider, I have my April, May, and June usages, and I can see the different statuses. So pending Veeam or closed means that your aggregator has pushed it to us, and that's done. Pending aggregator obviously means that you have submitted the usage, but it's still with the RO team that are processing those orders to yourselves as well and to us. And then pending service provider review, new or rejected by aggregator means that you have something that you need to make amendments on. So we'll talk about that in a second. So that's everything for monthly usages. The next overview area is the rental agreement. So if you clicked on rental agreement, this gives you a quick overview of your contract. Very high level, you can see your contract number, status obviously being active in this case, your company name, start date and end date of the contract, and your minimum commitments to the program. If you have a 0 minimum commit or no commit contract, then you can disregard your contract end dates. This typically gets pushed out except you decide to make a bigger change, for example, upgrade or whatever it is. So you can ignore it if you're on a 0 commit, but if you have a commitment, so 200 and above, then you can see when your contract is coming to an end, and you can also work with the team in Arrow to process a renewal in that regard. If you clicked on this contract number, you'd get a bit more information about your contract. So you can see over here, very similar information, but just a bit more information. We will come back to this. This is where you manage your licenses from. And the other thing to kind of mention from this rental agreement page is if you clicked on your company name over here, for example, you would get just a high level view of what information we have on our records for you as a service provider. The next section is going to be open support case or open support ticket. So let me click on that. It will open a new tab. This is still on my.veeam, where you can log in and you can raise a support case to the team internally as well. And you can see, obviously, we have a few different languages to select from, but I believe that, everybody in the Nordic regions will speak, would be using it in English anyway, so we haven't actually done translations in that regard. Pulse tutorials, which is the second, a different section, is looking at, so for example, we're talking about the overview now, so you can see you've got a short video about the overview of Pulse. You've got managed licenses, and then you've got submitting your monthly usages. I mean, to be honest, these are like 3 to 5 minute videos, so they're pretty short, pretty easy to kind of like follow and to watch. So, for example, if you're stuck at any point in the platform, you can just click on the Pulse tutorials and you can watch the videos or download the documents on how to do it. And then finally, you've got the Pulse settings, but again, this is not very relevant to you. This is about changing language settings, but we do not have any of the relevant, like Swedish, for example, or Danish, as the languages in here at the moment. So that's a quick overview. I'll pause for a couple of minutes, hand over to Thijs and see if basically you've got any questions and we can respond to them.
So if you have any questions, please raise your hand if you want to ask them live, or put them in the Q&A section. Maybe I can just elaborate. So when going from the ArrowSphere portal, it's also possible to go from the dashboard where you have the VCSP subscription and click on the paper plane icon on the right-hand side. That will also take you directly into the Pulse portal.
Perfect. Thanks, Thijs.
All right. No further questions as far as I can see.
Thank you. So again, let's look at the license management as the next stage. So say, for example, you log in and this is the page it brings you to. All you need to do is click on a rental agreement. And from this area, you want to click on the contract number. So key thing just to mention to you is that the licenses are nested under your contract. So click on the contract number. And like I mentioned earlier, you've got a quick overview of your contract status. And to manage licenses, you click on this button over here, the Manage Licenses button. And what this does is it would launch our license management wizard. So I'll give you a quick overview of these sections. The first section, just at the top, gives you, again, relative summary about your rental agreement status. You can see your minimum commit here. If you have any licenses, you can see the total points you're licensed for here. And then just to give you the context of what we mean by this soft limit and hard limit, this partner, for example, is on a 200 commitment plan. The next level up is 800, but what the system does is it calculates, especially based on your pricing and everything, that if you are using as much as 747 points, you are getting over to the limit, to the area, the break-even point, where it could be financially beneficial for you to upgrade to the next level. So once you upgrade from a 200 to an 800, you get a price discount. And in that regard, it becomes beneficial. If you're already using that number of points, you may want to reach out to Arrow, your aggregator, to process an upgrade, or in fact, a Veeam sales rep as well. That's the soft limit. The hard limit looks at 25% above that next level. So like I mentioned, you're on a 200, the next tier is an 800, the hard limit is 1,000 points, which is 25% above 800, which is the next level. And what this is basically implying is, if you haven't upgraded and you're consuming this many licenses, then it's basically a view to say, you really do want to consider upgrading. At the moment, we have not had any or implemented any restrictions from you downloading these licenses in Pulse, because we understand that you as a service provider, you're growing. However, this is something that potentially in the future, there will be some rules around that as well. So just for your information, this isn't stopping you from cutting licenses, but this at the moment is very much indicating that you should consider an upgrade, because you will get a better price break in that regard. So that's what you have at the top. In the bottom section, you've got your licenses. So if you look at this one over here at the bottom is just internal use, and you can see it's a promotional license. There are no points, and you can just basically see that. This gets applied for the majority, if not all, of our service providers. However, this partner that I'm using his account, for example, my demo account, this is the group of licenses, and it's not an individual product. This could be more than one. It's like a folder, so it can be more than one in this regard. So let's just click on one of these license descriptions if you want to download those license files. So I click on replication licenses, for example. So I'm on the pre-production environment, and you can see basically it's slightly slower than, in fact, a lot slower than the production environment. So just indulge me, this will load in a second. I just run through that again very quickly and just, okay, it's actually loaded. So you click on that, and basically you scroll down, and you can see I have Veeam Backup Enterprise, and I also have Veeam Backup Standard. In this regard, you can see basically, and I'll talk about the end dates and stuff like that in a second. Let's talk about product versions for a second. Now, when you cut the licenses, you will be selecting what version you want to cut. If you're migrated, you would know whether you are on a 9.5 update 3, which is the legacy licenses. You would know if you're on a 9.5 update 4, which is more your Veeam instance license structures. And recently we have released the version 10, so you would know whether you're on that. Now, to download the license files, you will always have the opportunity to download either the version that you cut a license for or something that is newer than that. So perfect example is if I look at this one, I only have a version 10 and a 9.5 update 4, which is your instance ones. However, if I look at this one, I've got a 10, I've got a 9.5.3, and a 9.5.4. So for this one, there's a high chance that this service provider, when they deployed it, the customer's environment is still on a legacy environment. So they potentially might still need to select a 9.5.3 and download and use those licenses. So please understand that there's a compatibility situation whereby you will deploy the same version that your end customer's environment is currently working on. If you have a different version deployed, and typically what you find is that that could cause issues in that regard. So always implement or install the licenses at the correct version for your customers as well. So select the version that you need and hit the download button, and basically that's you done. You can download your license. The next option is, say for example, I have Office 365, I have 75 points, I'm getting more customers, so I'm trying to increase my license count for my Office 365. Instead of clicking on this description, I go to the edit and I click on the edit button. I scroll down and just click next. We will come and look at this page shortly, in a minute or two. And then I can see basically that I have 50 seats, 50 units or users, depending on the terminologies we use. And I have a total of 75 points because the points per unit is converted as 1.5. So if I say, yes, I'm getting 10 more, and I change that from 50 to 60, once I click away, you can see it's done the math and it's showing me my total points over here. Once I'm happy, I just click submit. And once you scroll down, if you need to download that license file, you can just hit the download button as well. Now I'm going to pause for a second. The reason I say if you need to is that when you do the installation on the environments, the critical thing is whether or not you switch on the auto license key update functionality on the console. So on the product, if you have that checkbox selected, the most of you would know about this, then whatever changes you make in here should reflect on the environment within a day or thereabout. That also includes things like I upgrade my contract or I renew my contract. I don't have to or shouldn't have to then redeploy, like re-download those license files and install them all over again. As long as I have that checkbox selected, the auto license key update, then once you make changes in Pulse, or in fact, if you move to another contract, we will map those licenses to the new contract. So in essence, basically, you wouldn't need to do this all over. So that is the second thing. We've looked at how to find and download your licenses, how to make basic adjustments in, to your licenses, and obviously I've called out the fact that you do want to select the auto license key update functionality where you can. The last area that I'm going to go into is basically, I need a new set of licenses. How do I get that? So again, from this license wizard front page, I will click on request new licenses at the top right-hand side. So first of all, like I mentioned, these licenses are cut in like folders in groups. So let's call this, let's just call it new group of licenses. So you have to tag it with a description because that helps you find that folder. So sometimes partners would use the name of the customers if they're cutting specific customer licenses, or they might say, I'm cutting all my backup licenses, or whatever it is. So depending on which ones it is, you would just give a description that is most suitable to you. Then you have this second section, which is the license type. We now have the opportunity to cut different license types. So previously, I think typically if you look at it, most of the license files that were issued, they kind of fell into this bucket of your multi-customer use. A lot of you would have deployed these in different environments. We now provide you the opportunity for you to say, I've got 10 end customers, maybe more. I'm going to then go back and cut these licenses for each one of these customers. So instead of having maybe a VBR with 200 points, I have 10 customers. I'm going to cut, let's just say, for example, I'm going to cut 20 points of VBR for each one of these customers so that I can manage these licenses individually. If you choose to do that, you would be selecting single customer use. And then the final type is internal use. And I think I had a partner ask recently, can we use these licenses internally, and how does this work? So you would select internal use if you did. Once you cut the license keys, you'd be able to use these internally. The one thing is you would report on them like you report on any other licenses, and you'd pay for them in the same way as well. But this gives you that ability for you to actually manage these licenses in this regard. So let's go to single customer use. This is like a different use case, so it's best to kind of go this because this is pretty new from what we do today. If I select single customer use, then I have to enter my customer's detail. It doesn't have to be the customer's name, but I can tell you that your aggregator doesn't necessarily see the end customer details as well, so that's up to you what you put in here. If you have an existing customer that you've cut licenses for in Pulse already, then just click on this search button. For some reason, this is not working for me, but that's fine. You click on the search button and you'd have a list of the different customers that you need to use. If this customer is new, and I think for the majority, in fact, all of you right now, you wouldn't have end customers in there yet, then you would select new, and then you would type the name of the customer or whatever you want to tag them for. So let's just call this customer Treon, for example. And then let's say that this customer is in Sweden. These are the mandatory fields. It's either existing customer or new customer, and then you would select the country. The other fields like the state and the domain and the customer CRM ID, these are optional, And it could help you tag those licenses as well, but these are optional fields. This is up to you whether or not you want to populate them. So just to go through that, you provide a description, you select what type you want, and then if you select single customer, it's going to require you to put some customer information in here. At the bottom over here, let's look at the expiration or the expiry for those licenses. Now, if you are a no commit license, no commit contract partner, then basically your licenses, you can't set the expiry dates. The expiry date will be dependent on your usage reporting being up to date. So you don't need to make any changes here. It will continue to push it out on a monthly basis as you report your usage. If you are a VRA customer and you are cutting specifically a single customer use, then you have the opportunity to have a custom end date with this. And the best use case that I can give you is, I'm a VRA customer. My contract expires end of March 2021, so about a year from now. But my end customer that I'm cutting this license for, they are leaving me, say for example, or maybe their contract with me ends at the end of December. If this is the case, I will select custom end date. I will enter the dates that I want these licenses to terminate, for example, so end of December 2020. And I will switch on this auto extend button over here. Now, fundamentally, I think the key thing to call out is that auto license key update checkbox we talked about becomes critical here as well to make sure that it continues to refresh these licenses on a monthly basis as well for your customer. If you don't want that, just simply leave it to VRA end date, and the licenses will go out till your contract ends. And once the contract is extended or renewed, then the licenses, like I mentioned earlier, will map to the new contract and it will continue to work. So I've selected everything I want on this page, and all I need to do is click next. Okay, and now this is where you can see where we can actually select the products that we want. So I'm going to say that for this end customer, they want Veeam 1, so I'm going to enter Veeam 1, drag it from the right-hand side to over here. And let's say that they also want a legacy 9.5.3 Veeam backup and replication standard license. So I drag that over here as well. So once I select all my products and I drag them to the right-hand side, then I can say how many units they want. So these guys want 25 seats. And if you can see that it multiplies by the PPU and gives you the total point on the right. And let's say these guys want Hyper-Vs and they want 3 seats of that. And you can see the total points over here as well. And all you need to do once you're happy with this and you've selected the product and the amount, click submit. And what happens is it will take you to the page where you can just download those licenses. And you can see exactly what we talked about. Availability suite. I can see which version I want. Veeam 1 sits under this now. As you may know already, we communicated this. And then Veeam Backup Standard, you should see a 9.5.3 as well. So in case that is the version that you wanted, you'll be able to download that as well. And once you're done with that, you can click back, or basically you can just navigate away in that regard. So I'll pause again. These are the 3 key things that we've looked at: how to find and download your licenses, existing or new, how to make changes to your existing licenses, and also how to cut new Veeam licenses going forward. So I'll pause. Thijs, any questions from the team? Thank you.
No questions so far. So
okay,
hopefully it's very clear for all.
That's good. Okay, so everybody, the last section that we're going to look at is going to be around the usage reporting. So like I mentioned, when you log into Pulse from ArrowSphere, you will be brought to this page, which is My Actions, or the service provider My Actions page. You would find the relevant month you want to report on. So the majority of you, like I mentioned, will only see March 2020, starting from April 1st. A handful of you, very few, might see February usage at the moment, or in fact, there may be cases where you then see more than one depending. But from my understanding, we have due dates, so typically we don't have situations where partners are late with their usage. Click on the usage month. And this will open what we refer to as the MUR, which is the monthly usage record. So at the top, you have a quick overview of the contract. In the middle section, you've got an overview of that usage month. So you can see I'm reporting for this month. The status is currently pending service provider review. Once I report and I submit my usage, I'll be able to see the date it was submitted on and who submitted this usage. You are able to enter a service provider and purchase order number, but this is an optional field. And then in case you need to send a comment to your aggregator as well, you are able to enter the comment fields here as well by just clicking on that button, typing it and clicking save. At the bottom, you can now see these are all the products that I have licenses for. And if you notice, we had Veeam 1 and VBR standard that we just cut just now. Now, how this works is if I cut a license file in February, from the 1st of March, when I am reporting my February usage, I will see that product on my usage list as well. However, if I cut the licenses in February, I will not see them on my January usage because that is past. So in February, if I cut it, say, for example, at the beginning of the month, it's not going to show up in my January usage list. It's going to show up in my February usage list from March going forward. So you can see the products I have licenses for, and obviously the workloads or the unit types. You can see specifically the numbers of the units over here that I have. And then if I have reported in Pulse in the previous month, you will also be able to see basically what I reported in the previous month. So first thing that I want to do is I want to go in and enter my usage. So for Veeam 1, let's say I use 10 this month, 10 units. It multiplies by the points per unit. It gives you a tally of your points at the far right-hand side. Over here, let's say I just used 2. Office 365, let's say I used 50 in this month. And I'm just going to just type in numbers now. So let's say, for example, I use that. And then backup standard VMs, let's say I use 3. You can see that as it's doing all the multiplication, it's adding up the points and it's totaling my points over here as well. Now, my minimum commit as a VCSP partner is 200. I've reported 0 points. Excuse me, I should move this away.
Anthony, we have a live question coming in. So
oh, yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so Martin, you have a question? Okay, so it's a written question. So he's just suggesting that a copy of previous month would be nice.
A copy of the previous month's usage would be nice in
yeah.
that. Okay, so are we talking in specifically from a perspective of what is showing here, so that you can see what you reported as well? Or
yes, so I would guess because this is something that is being used in AeroSphere, so yes. You can just have a button that will actually move the previous month data to the current month, and then you can make slight alteration for the products that have changed.
Okay, so we don't currently have that functionality in Pulse today. I do remember this, it's on a backlog item, but to be honest, I am not able to guarantee when that will be available, but it definitely is something that we're aware of and we potentially will be rolling out in Pulse soon. Okay, so just looking at a few of these, so we can see basically that this is what the partner has reported. They're on a 200 commitment, so you can see that I reported 404, so I can see my overage as well. If on the other hand, just to kind of change this a bit, I just made this 2, for example, and I changed this one as well, and I made this 1, for example, and what else can give me some, yep, this one, I made this 1. If I reported in total points that are less than my commitment, the system would enforce the balance. And you can see basically you've got an enforcement of 27. So the minimum that I can report will be whatever my commitment is. So that's just one thing for everybody. And I believe that this is very likely going to be similar to RSPay as well. If you need to, and again, the best example to give is with the Veeam instance license structure, sometimes you download one product, but you have the ability to use maybe a couple of other ones that are in the same bucket. If you do not find them here and you want to report them, just click on this drop-down menu, scroll through, and you're able to find. So say, for example, I used Veeam Backup and Replication, Enterprise Workstation. I can select that product, add it over here, and you can see I don't have licenses for it, but I have used it, which is fine. And all I need to do then is basically enter the number of units that I've used, and it does the math and adds it over here as well. So you can see basically that you have those options, excuse me, in Pulse as well. Once you're done and you're happy with the usage, click Save. And you can see it would say that the record has been updated. And once you scroll down now, you have all these options. Now, the one thing to call out is Save is not the same thing as Submit, by the way, please. So Save just gives you the opportunity to save it and maybe go away and come back if you need to make changes. But you still have to remember to hit the Submit Usage button. If you choose, for example, to enter your purchase order number, just click on this Edit button over here. Type in your PO number, hit the Save button, and again, you will be able to see all that information. And once you are done with all of that, you just need to then submit your usage. And once you're done, this will go as a notification, first of all, to your Arrow team. And then as well, this usage will be pulled into ArrowSphere within the hour. And then you'll be able to go in there and, you know, like the Arrow team would be able to go in there rather and process the orders for these as well. So I'll stop at this case. This is all you need to do from a perspective of usage reporting. Click on the usage month, enter the usage, hit submit or save and then submit, depending. And then that's all that's done or all that's required from you on a monthly basis as well. Okay, so I'll come back to the team and just see if there are any other questions in this regard, and I can, you know, we can help.
So no apparent question this far. I can supply with the PO number. So when you're entering the PO number in Pulse, it will actually also be imported to ArrowSphere. So that information will exist on both sides. Doesn't seem to be any more questions.
Okay, I think just the one thing just to kind of reiterate again is you should have access to Pulse starting now with a single sign-on being switched on rather. If you get a minute between now and the end of the month, please do log in. Familiarize yourself with things like your contract information, your licenses, any questions that you have. You can either open a support case over here, or you can speak to the the team within Arrow for some help. But the key thing with this is that you have the access to go in, you can start to look around it, and then come the 1st of the month, 1st of April, you will be able to then go in and submit your March usage as well. Okay, so that is everything for me. Thanks, Thijs.
Thank you, Anthony. Well, yeah, and again, as Anthony mentioned, if you have any trouble at all, just reach out to your Arrow team and we'll try to solve the issues if there are any as fast as possible. Also, we are having Veeam standby, just focused on this transition, so everything is supposed to go smoothly. So, well, have a look around, and thank you for participating today. Also, thank you, Anthony, for the demonstration.
Thank
and
you.
have a nice weekend all.
Thanks, everybody.